Hello, my name is Jeff. This is Castle Tutelage, your home defense network. If you're ever going to come to Minnesota or you plan to travel through Minnesota, I would like to tell you one thing about Minnesota. If you bring your gun, there is one imperative thing that you need to understand that is different from all the other laws and all the other 50 states and territories about if you use a deadly force, you must do this. First of all, I want to get into this Minnesota nice theory, and hopefully this commercial will do it for you.
Hey, have you heard the news? Land of 10,000 things to do. More shoreline than California, more to explore in Minnesota. More recreation worth noting, snowboarding to summertime sporting.
With lots to do and eat, our cities are tough to beat.
So if you dig fine art, or camping in a sweet state park,
and if you love to bike, you want to see that thing you like.
More theaters per capita, nothing rhymes with capita. Make sure to keep your glove near, there is simply more to love here.
We definitely broke our quota, now a little better, both loaded. From Ada to Sonora, there's more to explore in Minnesota.
Well, now that I've embarrassed myself of actually growing up in Minnesota and having Joe Mauer speak, I kind of would like to shoot myself. Okay, this is one thing that reciprocity with Minnesota is easy for a lot of states. Okay, if you come to the state and you have your concealed carry weapon, there is one statute that is extraordinarily important for you to know. If you see here, right here at 609.662, shooting victim, duty to render first aid. Yes, if you have a deadly event, Minnesota requires you by law to render first aid to your victim, if it is completely safe to do so. Okay, I just want to make sure that you guys understand this, and then we'll just go on and tell you something that is very asinine about it. People can complain about things in California, New York, some things in Chicago, but this has to be one of the worst written laws that requires you to do something during a life and death event. Okay. Subdivision 1, definition. As used in this section, reasonable assistance means aid appropriate to the circumstances, including obtaining or attempting to obtain assistance from a conservation or a law enforcement officer, or from a medical personnel. So when you get on the phone and say, "Hey, I was just in a life and death situation," you're required by law to render first aid in some effect, like telling the 911 operator that he is bleeding, he needs medical assistance, something to that effect. So you have to make that attempt. Now, this second, I can't talk today. Oh my God. Duty to render first aid. A person who discharges a firearm and knows that he or has reason to know that the discharge has caused bodily harm to another person shall, look at this word right here, guys, shall immediately investigate the extent of the person's injury. What does that mean? You shoot the guy, now you have to go to see, you got to get in close proximity to the guy to see if he needs first aid. The law doesn't tell you. Why would you, after you just shot someone, he may not be totally out of the fight. Minnesota is a duty to retreat state. So if you have the ability to retreat after the guy is down, but now the law is telling you to go to the guy to see if he needs first aid. Okay, number 2, render immediate reasonable assistance to the injured person. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean you have to put a compressed bandage on his wound? Listen to this. A person who violates the subdivision is guilty of a crime and may be sentenced as follows. If you are charged with this crime, you are now a felon who cannot have a gun on him, cannot have bullets. So if you don't render first aid to the person who tried to kill you, you could become a victim and now become a criminal. All right. If the injured person suffers death or great bodily harm as a result of the discharge to imprisonment for more than that, you can get up to 2 years and a $4,000 fine if you don't render first aid and the guy dies. Okay. The other one that I wanted to say is, hey guys, if you come to our state, and even if you are not in the shooting, and you see the shooting, you are required by Minnesota state law to go and see if the victim needs medical assistance. And if you do not do that, you are going to be a criminal by default. Okay? Now, the last one here is really distressing for a lot of people. Subdivision 4. It is an affirmative defense to charge under this section if the defendant proves by preponderance of the evidence that the defendant failed to investigate or rendered assistance to required under this section because the defendant reasonably perceived that these actions could not be done without a significant risk of bodily harm to the defendant or others. So now it's not only your responsibility to go see if the guy needs first aid. Now you have to prove that you couldn't safely give first aid to this person. How do you prove a negative? This is the same defense as duty to retreat. How do you prove a negative? How do you prove that something didn't happen, that you didn't have a way to go this way? Unless you have a photograph saying, hey, you know, there was a lion over there, there's a grizzly bear over there, I couldn't go that way, I couldn't go this way, I couldn't go this way, I couldn't go that way. Now, if you shoot somebody, Minnesota law requires you to retreat, have a duty to retreat after the person is down, but now Minnesota is also saying that you have to go see if the guy needs first aid. And if you don't go see if the guy needs first aid, it is your responsibility, it is your production of evidence to prove to the state that you did everything that you could to render first aid in some fashion. So people are going to be saying to me a lot, you know, California this, California that, New York this, and New York that. Look at this statute, 609662. Shooting victim duty to render first aid. This is the worst law ever. It is contradictory in nature. It does not stand on its face between duty to retreat and to render first aid after the victim has been shot. Okay, not render first aid. I guess that's a bad phrase. But just to see if he needs aid in some fashion and get the ball rolling for that. It is a very embarrassing law in the state of Minnesota. So, come on down to Minnesota. Do your fishing, do your hiking, do your camping, snowmobiling, skiing, whatever you want to do. Swat the mosquitoes, okay? If you bring your gun and you have a use of force event, beware. It is a duty to retreat state, but you have to go check the victim if you shoot him. My name is Kate. Excuse me. Old. My real name is Jeff. This is Castle Tuilager Home Defense Network. I hope this helped.